Hey, what's up guys? Yako Khalili, Director of Training for Sheepdog Response. Obviously, we're well known for our live in-person training, but if you guys can't come to one of our classes, we have a huge library of virtual courses. So to give you guys an idea of the quality of training that you're gonna get on a virtual course, we're gonna give you the first couple chapters of one of our courses for free. And if you like what you see, head over to sheepdogresponse.com and check out the rest of our virtual courses. Until then, check out this class.
Welcome to Sheepdog Response. I'm Tim Kennedy. I'm the founder of Sheepdog Response. Sheepdog Response, our mission is pretty simple. It's to preserve and protect human life. There's lots of different ways to do that. We simplify it to two really easy things. Keeping the blood in the good guys. That's prevention, that's medical training, and then letting blood out of the bad guys. And that might be fighting, that might be shooting. Sheepdog Response teaches a variety of courses to include situational awareness, how to use a rifle, CQB, medical courses for trauma, all the things that you need to know about how to protect and preserve human life. I've been in Special Forces I'm pushing 2 decades. Dozens of tours all over the world to include Iraq and Afghanistan in combat, Africa, South America, Europe, counterterrorism missions, human trafficking missions, counter-drug missions, counter-poaching missions. I've been doing this my entire adult life. Before that, as a firefighter, police officer, I fought in the UFC, top level. I fought for world titles. I'm a black belt in a few different martial arts. All of this experience from all of these different careers, some of it's the stuff of nightmares. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but I'm gonna take all the things I learned from all of those experiences, I'm gonna serve them up on a platter for you to take, for you to learn, and for you to provide that information for you and your family. For that one goal, for that one purpose, to preserve and protect human life. In this course, you're gonna learn the fundamentals of marksmanship. You're gonna learn about the mechanical elements of your pistol, how to work them, how to break your pistol down, how to clean it, how to draw it, how to shoot with it. Everything that you need to know for operating your pistol, you can learn in Sheepdog Response, Virtual Pistol 1. If you're a new pistol owner, this class is for you. If you've been training a while and you want to go back over all the basics, this is the course for you. Virtual Pistol 1 has all of the necessary components that you need to know to use your pistol. We're at the shooting range. Yay! We get to practice all of the things that are gonna make us a great shooter. But before you shoot, we have to keep some really, really important things at the forefront of our mind at all times. Safety. So safety, we have 4 rules that we can never break that you have to do all the time. So first one, you treat a weapon as if it's loaded. Every weapon, all weapons, you treat them as if they're loaded. That includes knowing the condition of your weapon, but treat all weapons as if they're loaded. 2, keep your weapon pointed in a safe direction. So here, that's downrange, up in my workspace, or down at the ground. Right, I never want to point my weapon at something that I don't totally want to destroy. Third, I want to keep my finger out of the trigger at all times unless I have decided to shoot. So deciding to shoot means I know what my target is, what's behind my target, and what's around my target. So, which brings us to the 4th and final, know your target. Treat every weapon as if it's loaded, keep the weapon pointed in a safe direction, finger out of the trigger, and then know your target, what's behind your target, what's around your target, and what's between your target. If you follow those rules, everybody's safe all the time. Speaking of safety, some things that you should have with you all the time when you're shooting. Ear protection. I wish everybody could have suppressors, but everybody doesn't have suppressors, so you have to wear ear protection to protect your ears because guns are loud. Eye protection. When you shoot, your bullet is gonna go and hit something. Sometimes that thing is gonna have that projectile do things that you didn't plan or intend. You might hit a rock, you might be shooting some steel, and obviously that steel is all pretty jacked up. So if my bullet impacts that bullet is gonna turn into lots of little pieces of shrapnel, and it's a good thing that I have good eye protection to protect my eyes, because I don't want little tiny bits hitting my eyes. Tourniquet. So I have a tourniquet super handy that can be reached by either one of my hands. Hiya, hiya, hiya. I also have an individual first aid kit handy that I can pull out with either hand. So I have my first aid kit, I have my tourniquet, I have my eye protection, I have my ear protection. Now we can get to training. We know our 4 rules of safety that can't be broken ever. Let's review them. That's right. Treat every weapon as if it's loaded. Keep your weapon pointed in a safe direction. Finger on the trigger at all times. And lastly, know what you're shooting. Positively ID your target, what's between your target, what's around your target, and what's behind your target. All right, I start with all right and so almost every single time. Sheepdog Response, Virtual Pistol 1. All right, so anytime that you're going to be handling a weapon, you're gonna do a 3-point check. You're gonna remove the source of feed, you're gonna lock the slide to the rear, and when I do a 3-point check, I'm gonna look down inside of the chamber, I'm gonna look in the barrel and make sure that there's no anything there, not just ammunition. While a 3-point check is to ensure that my weapon is clear, that as in there's no ammunition in it, I'm also checking the functions and mechanics of the pistol. So when I look inside of there, I'm seeing, yeah, this pistol's really dirty. I need to clean it. I see that everything mechanically is in place the right way. I see the trigger leveler is there. I see the extractor. So now, once I've done checked in the chamber, that's spot number 1. Spot number 2 is looking along the slide. So here I'm seeing all the mechanical elements, but I see that there's nothing hung up and there's nothing broken. And then last, I look down into the mag well to make sure that there's no magazine inside of it. Oftentimes, people will go to do the 3-point check with their magazine in. They look, and then they drop their slide. The magazine's still in there, and if there's a round in that magazine, it'll chamber that round. Now you have a loaded gun. So it's great that you did your 3-point check, but you missed the first step of clearing your weapon, which is removing the source of feed before you do your 3-point check. Chamber, slide, mag well. Clear. So there's parts on guns. These parts we're going to talk about here. Some of the parts, the mechanical elements that are important for you to know. They're your magazine, the lower portions your receiver, your slide, your barrel, and then you have the recoil spring assembly, which goes underneath the barrel. Those are like the big parts once you disassemble them. But on the gun itself, this bottom portion, some guns, it comes from the manufacturer. Some people, you add it. This is called a mag well. This guides the magazine into the mag well. So this is your magazine. This is what holds the bullets. This part on the top is the follower. That follower gets pressed down as bullets are loaded. The button that releases the magazine from the receiver, from the lower, out of the mag well, is this button right here. This button, when you press it, sometimes there's a spring that assists the magazine coming out. Sometimes it's just gravity that makes that magazine come out. So when you run out of bullets, this is the button that you're gonna be pressing when the slide locks to the rear to get the magazine out. And that is called the mag release, the magazine release. This one is made for a right-handed shooter, but that button is reversible. Sometimes they're ambidextrous, so you can push them from either side. So you can push it with your shooting hand, or if you're left-handed, your support hand. In this one, you can use your support thumb to press it, or you can use your shoot thumb to press it. But that is how you get your magazine out, is by pressing the mag release. So the slide right now is locked to the rear. It locked because of this piece right here, which is called the slide lock. This plastic piece, the follower of the magazine, is situated like this inside of the gun. When you run out of bullets and there's no more bullets that go into the chamber, this piece of plastic comes up and presses the slide lock up into the lock position. So because I don't have that magazine in there right now, this slide will just continue to move back and forth. But the moment I put this magazine in there and that follower presses up on this button, and you can see there's now tension. As this slide travels to the rear, it automatically locks because of the follower inside of the magazine. If I want this slide to go forward, I have to press on the slide release. So that locks it up, and that's how I make the slide go forward, by pressing it down. Magazine release, slide release. This pistol has no safety on it. The only safety that there is a safety on the trigger, and that's this tiny little portion that you can compress with your trigger finger. So that's just making sure that the trigger isn't being pressed from a different angle. You have to have your finger inside of the trigger well and to be able to press it directly to the rear for that round to go off and for the trigger mechanism to actuate. Mag release, slide release and slide lock, rear sight post, front sight post. This is a red dot. Red dots are a great asset, but you have to understand how to install them and also the application of them. You don't want a gun that doesn't have a red dot without co-witnessed front sight post and rear sight post. That is what ensures, even if this optic breaks, or how to zero it, or your draw stroke, all of the things that you use iron sights for make sight picture and sight alignment happen easier. So when you're setting your gun up, make sure that you set it up with the right iron sights that support the optic that you're mounting. This piece right here, for every pistol, it's different. But for this pistol, it's how you break this pistol down. When you rotate it, it's 45 degrees, there's a little tiny half moon on the slide, and that cut is what allows this gun to get broken down. So when I squeeze the trigger, I'm now able to pull and disassemble this gun because the pistol breakdown lever had been actuated. I'm gonna put it back on. I line up the guides with the slide. I rotate this back. Now the gun is back in working order. So trigger, breakdown lever, slide release, slide catch, mag release. This and a lot of pistols today are changeable. This one is set for my hand size, so it's as small of a back strap as you can add, but there's a little pin in this one that you press out and you can change out the back strap. Glock, you can add some more on there. SIG, you can add some more on there. Depending on your hand size, you want as much real estate available for your hands to fit on there. And so that's the one that I have on here. And then this is an aftermarket light. I like red dots and lights on most of my guns, so there's a lot of great lights out there. This one I've been using for a long time, and my holster's already set up for it. There are better lights, but this one's the one I have. So. Shooter workspace. This is where you do everything with your weapon. Everything that you're gonna do with a pistol, you do right here in your workspace. Your workspace is a really comfortable area that I'm able to mechanically reach everything on my pistol, and I'm still able to see everything around me. So I don't want to do anything with a pistol down around my crotch. That doesn't make any sense for me to do anything with a gun down here. It also brings my head down towards the ground where I can't see anything but my feet and the dirt. That's not useful. loading and unloading your pistol. There's only one way to do it, and you have to do it the same way every single time. By doing it the same way, it's going to reduce the chance of a malfunction, and it's going to ensure that your pistol is loaded correctly. First thing that we're going to do, we're going to make sure that we remove a source of feed if there is one. We're going to lock the slide to the rear, and we're going to conduct a 3-point check. I'm going to look inside the chamber, I'm going to look down inside the magazine well, I'm going to look along the slide face. 3-point check. Chamber is clear, magazine well is clear, and everything mechanically looks correct on my slide. I'm going to grab my magazine the exact same way every single time with my finger pointed towards the bullets. I'm going to insert the magazine into the mag well, making sure that it's properly seated. I'm going to press my thumb on the slide release, and I'm going to drop the slide, watching a round get picked up and put into the chamber. That just gave me a good warm and fuzzy that there's a round in there. But press checks are free. So I can grab my slide, pull it to the rear to take a little peek in here to see if there is a round in the chamber. A lot of weapons have a round indicator, a little thing that pops up to let you know, a little red slide here letting me know that there's a round in the chamber. That's what this does. So my round indicator says that there's a round in the chamber, and even better is I see that nice piece of brass saying, I'm in here, I'm ready to go. Thanks, brass, good to know. Loading, lock the slide to the rear, do a 3-point check, insert the magazine, drop the slide. Unloading, remove the source of feed, lock the slide to the rear, watch the round eject, do a 3-point check. I can press check to make sure it's clear. My weapon's clear. I can now holster. The best shooters in the world, the most elite combat units on the planet. You go to the tip of the spear and you go to the very tip, like the pointy part, and you see what those guys do well. They do the fundamentals under any condition, all the time, every day, regardless. So what do you think you need to be good at? You need to be good at the fundamentals. So what are the fundamentals? You have the 5 fundamentals of marksmanship. You have stance. For me, here's my shooting stance. My feet are about shoulder distance apart. My non-shooting leg is slightly forward. I'm not perfectly square, it's just slightly forward. The weight is distributed on the balls of my feet. My knees are bent, so we have stance. Next is grip, and that comes from the draw. That's how you grip the gun. Third is sight picture and a sight alignment. So if I have a good stance, I have a good grip. Sight picture and sight alignment is how I align the sights on the target that I'm going to be shooting. Sight picture is where your sights line up on target. Sight alignment is how are these sights aligned geometrically to give me the impact where I want it. Stance, grip, sight picture, sight alignment, trigger squeeze. That is the process of me squeezing or pressing the trigger. If you have a good sight picture, sight alignment, and a clean trigger squeeze, that round is always going to go where you want it to go. Stance, grip, sight picture, sight alignment, trigger squeeze, follow through. Follow through is everything that you do after the round breaks. So the round breaks, I'm going to prep the trigger again and get another sight picture. Now, breath control is an important fundamental, but breath control, when it comes to combat marksmanship, I'm going to really simplify it for you. Breathe. When it comes to precision shooting, breath control is a big deal that you need to rehearse and practice. But for combat shooting, you're just gonna have to breathe at every opportunity and all the time. Stance, grip, sight picture, sight alignment, trigger squeeze, and follow through. With those, you're gonna be able to accurately put rounds on target. Now let's break down each of those fundamentals of marksmanship. If you're walking and you stop in a comfortable conversation position, that is kind of your shooting stance. If I'm gonna walk up and get in a fight with somebody, whoo, bam, that right there, that's my shooting stance. Yes, it's kind of similar to my conversation stance. Does that mean that I'm an aggressive person to converse with? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just a really casual person to fight with. You just don't know, right? But your stance, it should be relaxed, it should be comfortable, the weight should be distributed on the balls of your feet, your knees are bent, the weight of my body is slightly forward, I'm not on my toes, my heels aren't coming off the ground, but the majority of my weight is on the balls of my feet. The thing about a shooting position, your stance, is that it should be sustainable, it should be repeatable, and it should be mobile. If it's those three things, sustainable. Can I stand here and do this for a long period of time? Yes. Is it repeatable? Can I go back to that exact same stance 100 times out of 100? Yes. Am I able to move out of that position? Can I move from here? Absolutely. Repeatable, sustainable, and mobile. That's how I evaluate a shooting position, specifically stance. The reason why stance is so important, stance and grip are two of the biggest things to mitigate the energy of the pistol, which we call recoil management. So when that gun comes out, and I get on the gun, and the gun breaks around, if I have a bad stance, I'm gonna have a lot of energy moving me like this. If I have a weak grip, the gun is gonna travel, and I don't want any of those things to happen. I want the gun to stay as flat as possible, and I want it to cycle. And that means that I have to manage recoil effectively and efficiently. Stance and grip are the two major components to that. Shoulder width apart, weight mostly on the balls of my feet, knees bent, lead leg, which is my non-shooting side. If this is me perfectly square, that is me slightly forward. I also want all of my body aligned to my target. Here, this is where everything, if this gun comes out, is gonna go. Obviously the target's over here, right? If I draw and the target's over here, that means my stance is pointing in the wrong direction. Slight adjustment, now I'm perfectly aligned to the target. I wanna make sure that my body is perfectly aligned to the target. That is just stance. Now for a good grip, the grip starts at the holster. Your shooting hand goes to the pistol. It gets as deep into the pistol as it possibly can, where the tang, right underneath the top of the receiver, underneath the slide, the meat of my hand goes to the very top of it. You can actually see a portion of my skin is kind of crumpled around the top of that pistol grip. Now I need to make real estate, I need to make room for my support hand, my non-shooting hand. This hand is gonna rotate as far as over as it can, and my thumbs are gonna stack on top of each other. You can see this real estate on the pistol grip. That is where my support hand is gonna go. The pad of my hand is gonna stack on top of there, and my thumbs will stack on top of each other. I'll make sure that my thumbs are not sitting on top of the slide release. I'm making sure that my thumb is not up and over in front of the slide. My thumbs are stacked on top of each other, and every bit of the pistol grip is gonna be covered by the meat of my hands. No portion of this black pistol grip is gonna be exposed to anything besides the meat of my hands. With a good stance and a good grip, I'm gonna be able to really effectively and efficiently manage recoil. Thumbs stacked on top of each other, both pointed towards the target. Unless I'm seeing my sights and I'm on my target, my finger is off the trigger, straight along the slide. All right. When it comes to the pressure, I'm not gonna give you like a percentage. A lot of times people say it's like 70 to 80% of the squeeze of the control comes from your support hand. So if I'm right-handed, my right trigger finger, my pointer, is the thing that's going to squeeze the trigger, that finger. This hand has nothing to do with the trigger. So this hand is what can do most of the controlling, which means that this hand, all I have to do is provide kind of structural support for my trigger finger just to move the trigger directly to the rear. The support hand thumb should point towards the target. What you don't want to have is your thumb down in the trigger guard. You don't want to stack your thumbs on top of each other. You don't want to have your support hand trigger finger on the front of the trigger guard. This is wrong. Never put your finger here. Matter of fact, some triggers even have little knarling here. And if you look at you and you're like, man, what's that there for? That's to tell you not to put your finger there. That's what that is there for. So your fingers go underneath your trigger guard. They press up into the trigger guard and into your shooting hand. And as you go out from position 3 to position 4, that crush grip squeezes together. Thumbs aligned, stacked on top of each other, pointing towards the target. They're not curling, they're not squeezing, just seated, resting on top of each other, pointing towards the target. Arm position, it's part of grip. What you don't want is to have your full extension of your arms, having your arms locked out. So what I do when I bring the gun out, I'm about 90% extended. The point of your grip and your stance is to give you an efficient recoil management. So if you feel your arms breaking and being raised like this, you need to bring the gun up to your eyes, push your elbows out a little bit so the gun can stay flat and travel. The recoil can travel like this and not like this or this or this. You want to keep the gun perfectly flat while you're shooting. Grip and stance are key in that. How you absorb recoil into your body depends on your body shape. But your arms, think of your arms kind of as shock absorbers that are going to transfer that energy into the rest of your body, all the way down to the balls of your feet, where everything stays perfectly flat while you're shooting. Your grip starts at your draw. So we're gonna do the draw by the numbers. So what is the draw? It's getting your gun up out of where you're holding it, up into your workspace, getting your side picture side alignment, and then squeezing the trigger. So the draw can be as fast as that. There's lots of wrong ways to draw, but there's only one right way. If you take your finger, and pretend that's your barrel, you align it where your holster is, coming from here, up and out of your holster, and then towards your target, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So how do I get my pistol up out of my holster and then to the target in the most efficient and fastest way possible? That's the question in the draw. So because of safety, we need to learn it in a very regimented way. We're gonna do it by the numbers. One is finding my grip on the pistol and my support hand moving over towards my shooting side. 2, the pistol comes up out of the holster and oriented towards the target. 3, my support hand catches up to my shooting hand, and this is where my crush grip begins. As I press out, my support hand gets tighter. As I'm moving from 3 to 4, my finger moves onto the trigger when I see my sight posts. So again, by the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the round breaks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, at 2, as soon as the weapon comes up at 1, my support hand, I want to move over across the center line of my body to get as close to the weapon as I possibly can. Think about your hand. All right, y'all remember when you're at that like high school dance, maybe you're a freshman, maybe it was middle school dance, winter formal, whatever. You see that girl dancing on the wall, right? She's moving to the beat. Maybe she gets eye contact with you. Hey, you know. What does that girl want to do? She wants to dance, right? She wants to come in and be part of the party. That's what your support hand's doing. Your support hand is that wallflower. It's sitting out there and it wants to be part of the action. So the closer it can get to the action, the better chance it has of being part of the action. So that hand comes across my body to get as close to my shooting side as I can. The closer that my support hand catches up to my shooting hand, the sooner my crush grip begins, and the better of a grip I'm gonna have when I reach full presentation. So 1, hand is already moving across. 2, support hand is moving towards the firing hand. At 2, my elbow pushes down towards the ground, and I make sure that my barrel is parallel to the marching surface. That's right, the marching surface is the thing that we walk on. So I wanna have my barrel flat towards the ground at 2, pointed directly towards the target. If need be, I can shoot from retention at 2. My support hand, I know where it is because it's in contact with me, moving all the way over towards my pistol because it wants to be part of the party. 1, 2, 3, 4. Retention shooting, scary stuff. Bad guy comes, I can get rounds on target. I know that my support hand is out of the way, but I can do a retention shot accurately because I learned my draw stroke properly. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can do that if I need to. My retention shot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do them by the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Speed that up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the more you draw, you start polishing off the edges of that draw stroke by the numbers. So instead of it being this very robotic 1, 2, 3, 4, things start getting smooth. Then once we have smooth, we can start adding speed. The times to move fast are moving towards your holster. But when you're first learning how to shoot, don't worry about speed. Worry about doing the draw stroke properly. 1, 2, 3, 4. We know what a good draw looks like, but what does a bad draw look like? There's lots of different ways to pull your gun out incorrectly. For example, I call it the propositioning. That's right. I'm gonna pop my booty behind me as if there's somebody I want to take notice of me. Looks like this. That's a bad draw. I don't want anything to move besides my weapon coming up to my eyes. Bring the gun up to my eyes. I don't want to bull. The weapon comes out of the holster and it comes up like I'm in a Dirty Harry movie. Freeze, you criminal! That doesn't make any sense. This looks like I'm in, I don't know, Huckleberry Finn when I do the fishing move. Looks like this. Or I'm like in a 1980 Chips movie. I'm like, ooh, hey, pull over, you. Pow, pow, pow. They're shooting at me. Hey. Right? All bad forms of a draw. I just want to bring the weapon up to my eyes as efficiently as I can. Not coming up and low and slow. Not coming up from the roof and down. And nothing else moving. No drop step. I don't want to be dropping a leg down as I draw. I don't be dropping my head down as I bring my weapon out. I don't be dropping my butt out as I go and draw. Just bring the weapon up to my eyes. Now, we didn't talk about this. But I'm taking the iPro off because I'm being super serious right now. When you go to put your weapon away, there's no fire. You're not in a rush. You're not gonna put your weapon away. I don't put my pistol away if I'm still having to do work. I'm not putting my pistol away if I'm still in the middle of a gunfight. The only time I'm putting my pistol away is when everything is done. And when everything is done, I can be really, really deliberate about putting my pistol away. It should look like this. I'm out, I'm done doing my work. Everybody has been sent to where they're supposed to be sent. Now, I'm gonna look at my finger, make sure it's straight along the slide. That's good. I'm gonna positively ID my holster. Then I'm gonna put my weapon away. There's no rush. I can be very intentional. If I'm concealed, I'm gonna make sure my clothes are up and out of the way and nothing's in the way. Look at my holster. Put my gun away, nice and safe. What I don't like is this. All right, I had to look that time. Yeah, I don't care how many times you put your gun away. It never makes any sense not to look at where it's going. I know where my holster is, yes. I know where my mag carriers are, yes. There's nothing wrong with looking at where your weapon goes. This thing can shoot a bullet. My holster is attached to my leg. So I'm gonna be very intentional and deliberate when I put my weapon away. Nice and safe. Sight picture and sight alignment, they're two different things that are one and the same. Sight alignment, you look at the geometry of your sight posts. You have your rear sight aperture and your front sight post. The front sight post should sit directly in between the rear sight aperture. I want everything to be perfectly square. Nice symmetry. The top of your sight post should be perfectly even with the top of your rear sight aperture. There should be a little bit of space to the left and right of your front sight post through your rear sight aperture. Now that space should be perfectly even. So that little tiny sliver of light should be proportionate on the left and right side. When all of those things are perfectly aligned, then I take those sights and I put them where I want on the target to give me my sight picture. So sight alignment is how my sights are aligned with each other. Sight picture is where that sight goes on the target. All sights are different and all pistols are different. Usually, you're gonna take that front sight post with your perfect square rear sight aperture where everything's aligned, and you're gonna take that front sight post and you're gonna set it right on top of where you want that bullet to go. Half the bullet is gonna go over the top and half the bullet is gonna go underneath. There are some pistols that you lollipop. So you're gonna take your front sight post and you're gonna set it directly, if you're gonna shoot me on the tip of the nose, directly underneath. And the bullet is gonna travel right on top and hit directly on the top of the sight post. You need to know where your point of aim is to give you your point of impact so you can determine what your sight picture looks like. And when we get to red dots, sight alignment kind of goes out the window. I still have iron sights on here, and in my draw stroke, I still use my iron sights to bring up my red dot. So sight alignment is still important for me in my draw stroke, but sight picture is the thing that really sets a red dot apart from iron sights. When you have a red dot, you don't have to focus on that front sight post. When I'm using iron sights, all of my focus, my hard focus, goes towards the front sight post. So hard focus is, if I'm looking at my finger, I can see my finger, okay, that's just focus. See it. Then I look and I see, oh, I have little lines on my finger. That's moving towards hard focus. But when I look at the swirls and the loops of my finger and the scars, I wonder what that one was from right there. That's hard focus. That is the type of focus that you have on your front sight post. Everything else behind that front sight post is slightly blurry. My focus is on that front sight post. With a red dot, I get to look at my target. I'm gonna take that red dot and I'm gonna set it on top of what I want to hit, where I want the bullet to go, but I can be focused hard on the target. I can be looking at the smallest, most accurate thing I can possibly aim at. So when it comes to aiming, with sight picture and side alignment, I have to make everything perfectly flat and symmetrical. With sight picture, and this is where a red dot gets so cool, is I can aim so precise because I'm aiming at the target. I'm looking at the target and I'm finding something at the target, the smallest thing possible, so I can aim small to miss small and put that red dot right on top of it. So then you can be target focused. There's lots of different red dots out there. When you're going to be picking a red dot, make sure that you pick one that is good. That makes no sense to put a red dot on your weapon that you don't trust, that doesn't perform, that isn't accurate, and doesn't work with you and your eye. Now, one of the things with a red dot is offset. So my red dot sits about a half an inch to an inch over my barrel. So I have to zero my weapon, but understand that my point of aim is going to be slightly different at different ranges until I'm exactly at my zero range. A zero is where the bullet is going to impact at the distance I am from the target, exactly where I'm aiming. And I'm zeroed at that range. For this red dot, I'm zeroed at 15 meters. So at 15 meters, this bullet is going to impact exactly where that red dot is. When you aim, ideally, you keep both eyes open. Sometimes you might have to slightly close an eye to get a really clear sight picture. That's okay, but you want, for combat shooting, both of your eyes open so you can see as much of the world as you possibly can, because information is going to keep you alive. Most right-handed shooters are dominant out of the right eye. That's common. Left-handed shooters are dominant out of the left eye. So think about when you're a kid and you're learning to write, right? You're like focusing on how to hold that pencil or that crayon. And you're looking at your paper and you're turning your head slightly so that your dominant eye is aligned with your dominant hand. And then through repetition, kind of muscle memory, the myelin and musculature, getting used to aligning things so that you can write. That's how you learn the small motor skills. And that's how your brain aligns your dominant eye with your dominant hand. That's what happens with most people. Not everybody is that way. Some people are right-handed, but then left eye dominant. Some people are left-handed, but right eye dominant. Being cross-eye dominant doesn't change anything. So I'm gonna show you for cross-eye dominant shooters what you can do. All you're gonna do is bring the gun to your eye. Some people talk about closing the non-dominant eye. Some people talk about closing the dominant eye. Really, just bring the gun. If you have good sight picture and sight alignment, it doesn't matter what eye is taking over. As long as these are even, as long as your sight posts are even, or that red dot with your sight picture is where you want it to go, the bullet's gonna go where you want it to go with the clean trigger squeeze. So, right-handed, right eye dominant, gun comes up, perfectly level and even with my dominant eye, with my dominant hand. But if I was left eye dominant, instead of bringing your head over to make my sight picture with my left eye, with my right hand, all I'm gonna do is bring my gun up to my left eye. So my draw stroke, instead of coming up to my right eye, it's gonna come up to my left eye. In either case, if my sights are aligned and the sight picture is where I want it, the round's gonna go where it needs to go. So you wanna know which eye is your dominant eye? Kind of simple. Make a tiny little circle. Tiny little circle with your hand. Take that tiny little circle and put it over the target. Then close an eye. If your hand didn't move and you could still see the target, that is the eye that you're dominant. If your hand moved, your other eye is your dominant eye. You now know whether you are cross-eye dominant and what to do if, in fact, you are cross-eye dominant.